Hello there, guys, and welcome back to my channel, to one of the most baffled versions of myself you'll have ever seen, because I don't think I've ever been this pessimistic going into a game, aside from maybe Real Madrid last season, where we just knew there was no chance we were going to win that. I can't remember the last time I was this pessimistic going into the game. Even when we went 1-0 up, I was still so angry at Poch and just existing, frankly. You know, the whole dropping Thiago Silva because of his wife's tweet, even though she's the only one with a set of bollocks actually saying what's necessary. But if we play like this, if we score goals like this, I can't be complaining too much. Obviously, on Twitter, I said jokingly, players clearly purposely not listening to Poch now. That's why all of a sudden we're playing well. It's clearly, obviously not true. You understand that, right? But I don't know. Chelsea's so weird. Like, at least, you know, in the Roman Abramovich era, once things started to go really wrong, there was no saving that anymore. Like, once it went wrong and it was just wrong, right? There was no way on earth I thought we could ever, after those last two shocker performances against Liverpool and against Wolves, eight goals conceded in 2 games, did we turn up like this today? I have no idea how this has happened, but I am over the flipping moon. Over the flipping moon. Next round of the FA Cup, I think we play Leeds. Initially, it was like the winner of Leeds and someone, but I think it's now Leeds. Please, someone.
It's Leeds, yeah. It's Leeds, yeah.
Very good. Very nice. Dimitar, I'll start with you. First of all, love the shirt. Brilliant home shirt. Thank you for coming on. I assume you are as surprised as I am, because I don't think anyone expected that today. Or did you somehow?
No, I definitely did not. I was lucky enough not to watch the last game, but I saw the highlights, so I was a bit pessimistic going into today. But I think the players themselves gave a little bit more, and it was showing that they wanted it more in this one specifically. I think that was basically it. And Villa, for me, looked a little bit leggy. For me, they were not up to their best, even though we played them off the park in the first game as well, in my opinion. Today, they were just subpar. But yeah, like I said, we wanted it more, for sure.
Yeah, we did. And it was a weird one, because obviously after the Wolves game, Ben Chilwell was sat in an interview saying, well, they wanted it more. Today, apparently, we wanted it more. Can we just want it all the time? Don't know. Like, just try with that, Chelsea. That would be a good start. But yeah, I am absolutely over the moon, and I'm also laughing at it. And Amit's comedy. Bell's tweet is going to be remembered as much as Alonso's starting in a back 3. That is hilarious. But yeah, I mean, Thiago Silva was on the bench initially, as far as I was told, because of the tweet. But he did come on later in the game, so it can't be that big of a deal, I suppose. So that is something. Naishi, thank you for coming back on again. I appreciate it. Same question as I put to Dimitar, bro. Surely you also didn't see this coming. Like, there was no way I thought we would win, let alone score 3 goals, let alone until the last minute, essentially, and straight after our first goal. We completely destroyed them. Like, from top to bottom, we dominated them the whole game. We could have scored a couple more as well. They had, 2 more chances? 2 of them straight after we scored, and the other one's at the end now. It's unbelievable. I have no idea where this has come from. The tactics ever so slightly changed. We'll get into those, but it wasn't like a drastic change to a back 3 or whatever, which, because he dropped Thiago Silva, wasn't really even possible unless he started Alfie Gilchrist. And now it isn't possible again, because now Badiashile is also injured. But thoughts, Naishi? Because I am baffed. I tell you, I am baffed.
Yeah, so I don't know if you remember in our stream against the draw against at Stamford Bridge. Yeah, I was optimistic, and I did believe we were going to get it at Villa Park. But with those 2 games, my optimism was drastically low after those 2 games. So I was actually thinking that we're going to lose this game, but we really dominated from start to finish. Maybe towards the end of that the game, we kind of tailed off and we kind of dropped too deep for my liking. But that was a really good performance, and probably our best performance of the season, if I'm being honest. And there was a lot to like about the team. The back 4 was a lot more fluid, which is kind of telling, because Thiago's. We're gonna get into that, but the midfield as well. I feel like the gaps were kind of filled, and it was a lot more fluid, and they had more cohesion. And the front three, Jackson was amazing on that wing. I think the best winger, if I'm being honest, at the moment. And yeah, and I loved how when Aston Villa had possession of the ball, Chelsea would kind of just drop back and kind of blocked all the kind of through ball and potential passes. So it was just a brilliant performance, and I'm really happy. And that's why I got my top on today. So if I got my top on, I'm in a good mood.
Very nice, mate. Absolutely love it. You made a good point there, though. Nicolas Jackson. I tweeted this during the game. We paid £62 million for Mikhailo Mudryk. We paid Raheem Sterling £325,000 every week, and somehow our striker turns out to be our best left winger. I don't know how that's happened. It's just another sign for how terrible our recruitment has been. But fair enough. You know, if Palmer can play false nine, maybe eventually Nkunku and Jackson off the left, while Mudryk doesn't have form, and Sterling I don't need to see ever, to be honest. I was outraged again that he came on, if I'm being totally honest with you. But what am I to expect different from Pochettino? Dimitar. Oh, let me actually say one thing. As you can see, back in my kind of old background, but in a new place. Going to put something else here than the flag. Haven't got around to doing that yet, but I will do. Hopefully the connection is fine. The Wi-Fi isn't quite as good as it was in the old place, but I hope it's okay. Dimitar, how did you see the lineup? How do you think, what tactical changes do you feel that we made? Because obviously lineup-wise, Jackson left wing, Palmer up front, but otherwise it's not that different to what we say did in the last game. Chilwell at left back, Gusto at right back, two centre-backs, Enzo Cicedo in midfield. But it just worked out differently. Do you think what do you think we tactically changed, or do you think it just was a bit also dependent on the opponent that it looked so much different and so much better?
I think the main difference is that in this specific formation with Jackson on the left, he's way more direct than Sterling and Mudryk for sure, because we know Mudryk starts in his own half with the ball, and Jackson in this game particularly, he was getting the ball farther up the pitch than Mudryk would normally do, so he was always a constant threat. And I think that was a big deal for Villa, because their wingbacks did absolutely nothing, and they had trouble like utilizing the width of the pitch, because this is something they do normally. If they're on it, they play a bit like prime Man City, in my opinion, because they can move the ball really quickly. But today we stretched them out a little bit, because both Madueke and Jackson were very dangerous when they got the ball in and around the position which we see them on your screen right now. And this is a bit refreshingly different from normal, because even if Sterling is on the left wing, we still sometimes feel that something is missing. But today with Jackson in comparison to Mudryk, it was like day and night comparison. Jackson was very, very, very aggressive, I think. And as far as the midfield goes,
like you say, aggressive defensively, aggressive offensively, kept making runs. It was a brilliant performance for him.
Yeah, well, he was direct, and this is something that it's pretty basic to do. And sometimes I don't know if coaches just tell players sometimes just go more direct, or if coaches don't do that and players decide it on their own in certain situations. But it looked like for me today that Jackson was like, every time he got the ball on, his only thought was progressing the ball forward. And he never thought about turning on his own axis, passing back. He never thought about looking where Enzo is, where Gallagher is. He just wanted to go forward. And this is, I feel, something we are lacking in general. And to his credit, Madueke also did the same. Sometimes he did a little bit more risky, but he didn't lose the ball, so it paid off. And yeah, like I said, I think that's why we pinned Villa down a little bit more, even though, in my opinion, we were not controlling the midfield as much as people make it out to be on Twitter. I think it was just that we were very aggressive, and that pretty much destroyed Villa's build-up play.
There you go. Nice, interesting point. Just to react to what the chat has said, yes, off the ball, we most certainly played a 4-4-2 today. Jackson and Madueke dropped deep, and then it was essentially Palmer and Gallagher next to each other to press. That's how we defended. But obviously, you'll always have a slightly different formation off the ball as you do on the ball. That's natural. But today was obviously very clear that those two are up front, which is interesting, because when a striker is playing left wing, you could have thought that maybe off the ball, these two are going to press and maybe Gallagher's going to drop in here or Enzo drops over there and Gallagher drops in here or something. But that wasn't the case. That wasn't the case. Jackson dropped in as a left mid, essentially, when defending, and it worked out really, really well. I mean, it's interesting what you said there, Dimitar, in terms of that you don't think we dominated the midfield. It's a tough question. I saw a tweet from a quote from Roy Keane, who seemingly was doing punditry on ITV saying that Enzo and Cicedo dominated midfield. It's a weird one because partly I think we did dominate midfield, but not in your typical way that you dominate a midfield. It's not like, we constantly had the ball, they won, they just did everything on their own. It was just like as a unit, because the two lines of four that I had just shown a minute ago, the back four and then the midfield four, they were very close to each other. So we didn't really give Villa space to operate in that area. And then higher up, Palmer and Gallagher just pressed like absolute madmen. Obviously, Jackson and Mudryk helping them too. But then once Villa progressed into the center third of the pitch, they were very, very just disciplined, I would say, in staying in their left mid, right mid areas. And then we just kept it super tight and won the ball back so often and quite easily. And to be fair, we didn't give it away very many times. So that was very good. Cicedo, I thought, was brilliant today. I'm a bit confused how he looked injured, then looked to be coming off, and then all of a sudden didn't come off. But I'm like, we were 3-0 up. Like, even if he's fine, surely just take him off just to be sure, right? But that's not what happened. Naishi, quickly from your perspective, how do you think we adapted things tactically? Because it's a weird one, because obviously Jackson then still came central. Mudryk came kind of central as well. You had Gusto bombing up and down the pitch. You had Chilwell bombing up and down the pitch. Sometimes Gusto was the inside and Mudryk was the outside. They were linking up very nicely over there. But none of this is kind of like witchcraft. Like, we didn't do anything outrageously, especially different. So what do you think made us play different? Is it as simple as the team turned up today and it didn't recently? Or how do you explain it?
So first, I kind of touched on it earlier that we kind of just overloaded that midfield. We overloaded that midfield, so Aston Villa were kind of stuck. They didn't really have a plan B. I felt like what they were trying to do. Martinez, if you notice, had a lot of the ball. He was waiting for one of the Chelsea players to press them, but instead Chelsea knew to do that. They stayed deep, marked those two defensive midfielders. So Aston Villa were kind of stuck. They had to go long or to the sides, which played in Chelsea's hands. So it was a perfect, and this was a similar tactic we did against Arsenal. If you watched that game, you'll notice that it was similar tactics where we kind of overloaded that midfield. We had Palmer dropping in almost as a cam, and also Mudryk tucked in as well. So they wanted Aston Villa to play in the full-back areas or play along. And Aston Villa had no option. They had no alternative. Literally, the only time that Aston Villa had time on the ball was when we went 5 at the back, which was, I think, was a wrong move. But at the same time, I don't blame us for going back to that, because even the last 15 minutes, I was kind of scared that Aston Villa might do a comeback. But in terms of, I think this is the perfect tactic going forward. I think we should just do this till the end of the season because nothing else is working.
So do you reckon what we did today will work against everyone? Or do you think it was a case of we just adapted as to who we were playing against and it worked against them?
I feel like this tactic will work against a lot of teams, except for like the bigger teams like Man City, Liverpool. They'll suss them out as soon as they feel like there's a in-game situation where they know what Chelsea's trying to do, trying to overload the midfield. Man City will either tuck in the midfield, the fullbacks, or they'll find a way to kind of counter that. But against the Aston Villas, and also the Brentfords and stuff like that, I think we can get good results. And I feel this is a blueprint for going forward, especially till the end of the season, and then we can kind of start again. And I'm kind of hopeful. This game was really, like, against the Aston Villa that's in the top 4, it was really dominant. So I'm really happy.
It's a weird one, isn't it? Because like you said, Villa are in top 4. When we played them at home in the Bridge, we should have won that game. When we played them, 10 days ago, a week, was it 2 weeks ago? When we played them in the kind of the original 4th round before the replay, we destroyed them in that game too. We just failed to score. And that was the main difference today. I want to highlight here a comment by Max, who says, we moved as a unit. We didn't leave too many spaces between each other. The opposite to the last 2 games. Maybe they are learning. For me, that was the biggest difference. That was the biggest change compared to recently. And that, in my opinion, was why we played so well. We didn't leave gaps. And because it was difficult to get through us, but also because we stayed compact also on the ball. Like, we moved as a team also on the ball. We shifted across, we shifted up the pitch. That meant there was less big gaps between our players, making it easier for passers to find your teammate and not lose the ball. Because if every pass you play needs to be 25 meters through 3 oppositions, then it's going to be more likely that you lose the ball than if your teammate is 10 meters away from you and none or maybe 1 player in the way. Do you know what I mean? It just makes it easier. And the problem is, can we run the way we ran today? Can we do that every game? Because if we don't run the way we did today, we don't keep the gaps as small as we did today. And then I'm not sure how well it works. But that is a whole separate question. I want to bring up one point, and then we'll move on to and actually rate the players. And I pose this to you first, Dimitar. Funnily enough, we speak so much about experience, and we should have bought more experience at striker, at this, at that, right? We have so many young players and everything. Today, our 2 oldest players in Thiago Silva and Raheem Sterling got dropped. And we played arguably the best we have. I don't remember the last time we played this well. Now, I'll be honest, I think the first half against Villa in the original game was actually better, but we didn't score. So therefore, I guess it wasn't better. But in terms of pure performance, I thought we even dominated even more in that half. But otherwise, now, sure, you can talk about Middlesbrough, but that is a lower league opposition. Like, that is a different standard compared to a team that's currently in the top 4 of the Prem. But do you think it's just a funny coincidence and the players turn up today after 2 really bad performances? Or is there something in there not having Thiago Silva in the back line? Could that have played a part in why the gaps were a bit smaller, both defensively and offensively? Maybe Sterling, we know if there's like, Sterling can do things on the ball, but we know he doesn't work hard enough defensively. We know he doesn't work hard enough in terms of pressing. We know he doesn't really like running about. So is it just a coincidence, or do you think that was actually part of the reason them 2 not being there made us better? How do you see that?
I think in general, Poch is experimenting, and sometimes, we've talked about it with you here. It's very hard to predict his lineups, and I'm pretty sure no one could have predicted this lineup today if Thiago Silva's wife had not tweeted that. We would have no idea, for example, he would not play. As far as it goes, why did we?
Do you think also? I know I have been told that he was dropped because of that. But we can't forget that he's nearly 40 and he's played all of the games recently. So there is also a thought to be made, maybe he should have just been rested anyway.
I'm pretty sure he would not have played because there was a lot of talk that Poch wants to try something new and that Poch wanted to try maybe a 3-4-3 or something like that. And I think that he understands very well that if he's to have a future at this club, he has to really try and find a spine, and he really has to try and find options. And for better or for worse, he knows that even if Thiago Silva is the best defender, he's not going to be the spine of Chelsea next season, for sure. I mean, even if he extends his contract, we can't play a 40-year-old and expect to get in the top 4. It does not work like that in the Prem. And about why we were so good today, I think maybe it's down to the fact that Aston Villa, for me, were not on the front foot. And maybe because we tried something different in attack. Because like we said, when we were defending with the ball, Jackson came back to the left midfielder position, as opposed to maybe what people would have expected, that he just stays up with Palmer. Instead, Poch decided to give freedom to Gallagher and Palmer to press as much as they want, and they did press. They ran their socks off. And this is something that normally Palmer doesn't do that much, because we see him technically on the ball normally, but today he was more like running and creating space or covering space or covering the extra pass from the Aston Villa defenders. And that's why maybe it did not look like he was very impactful in the game, but he still tried things and he was still always in the mix when something happened. And that is something I like from Palmer. And that is something that I kind of like about when Poch coaches our press, and when the press works, it looks good to me. And I mean, I like playing more control football, but I also like to know that when the players of our team that when they decide to go up the pitch, when they decide to press, there can be some end product. Because for the longest time, even under Tuchel, we were pressing, we were running, but nothing was happening because we always controlled the ball with the Jorginho Kante midfield, and our press was not the best. But now I think we're giving up a little bit of the midfield control to give them more spaces to press. I know that makes sense, but that's how I see it, and I think it works because even against Wolves, I think in the second half when we were completely terrible, the only time when we could have scored from the highlights was what I saw, that when they made some kind of mistakes or when they fumbled a pass, and that's also where the kind of the second goal for 4-2 came from. So in my opinion, yeah, we're just trying kind of press, and this is maybe the best thing about Poch's reign at Chelsea.
Or was that just for me?
Sorry.
Did Dimitar also drop out the stream for you? Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, did my connection fumble for a bit?
Yeah, you did. But
yeah, okay. So, what I was saying is I kind of like this new pressing styles, and I think this may be the best thing that, or maybe the only good thing Poch has done thus far. He got us pressing. Everything else is kind of 50-50.
Yeah, at a push 50-50. Maybe it's more like 30-70. But yeah, no, that is a good point. The only problem with the whole pressing thing is there's only a few teams where that actually works for us, because the teams that just sit super deep and have absolutely no interest in keeping the ball and playing out, against them, the press is somewhat useless. Not completely useless, but somewhat useless. One other thing I want to mention is another thing that, in my opinion, played a big role. I can't remember which one of you touched on it, in terms of that we forced, because of our press, we forced Villa, we either took the ball from them, forced them to play out through our press, which often didn't work out for them, or play long. But the big difference compared to a lot of other games is when the opponent did go long, we won almost all of the headers. And even if we didn't win the header, we won the second ball. And, well, sometimes, obviously, your own centre-back or whatever might win the header, but not necessarily controlled. And then it's again about, does the midfield or the fullback win the second ball? And I think that was the biggest difference today. We won those second balls. There was someone, did I highlight it? No. But there was someone in the chat that made a pretty reasonable point. Ejnaku it was. He says, mid-table teams are often defined by inconsistencies. Today was the peak after recent trial. We need to try to maintain this. And that's the worry, right? Because we've had amazing games. We have. But then we also have had really terrible games. And obviously us as Chelsea fans, because of where we have been for the last 20 years, for us, it's like, oh, we're great today. And the next time we play bad, it's like, oh, we're shocking today. But at the same time, it's like, maybe we just aren't better, because there is quality there. But the manager and the team have not really been able to get it out consistently. That's why I'm not so sure necessarily the way Nation put it, in terms of if we just play this, it will work all the time. Like, because it's just so, you just never know how the players are going to turn up, how the opponent is going to turn up. Are the opponent going to know how to deal with us or not? It's a weird one. But Nation, just quickly before we move on to the ratings, I'll put the thought also to you. The two most experienced players left out today, and we almost looked like the most composed we have in a long while. Or was it also just the way the game happened? Because we took the lead fairly early on, then with a little bit of luck, didn't concede straight away, just like against Wolves. Because if we don't concede straight away against Wolves last weekend, we probably win that game too. And if today, because Villa had two big chances straight after we scored, if they equalize, chances are the game goes exactly the way the game against Wolves went. But because we didn't concede that goal, and then fairly soon after make the 2-0, it just felt like it settled us. And I just think that was the biggest difference. But yeah, maybe it is also to do with, like I say, Thiago Silva obviously has a bit of a lack of pace. Maybe we just instinctively played a bit higher, therefore we're a bit more aggressive. How do you see that in terms of, the two most experienced players out, even though we keep talking about we need to sign more experienced players?
Yes, definitely. The backline was definitely a lot more fluid without Thiago Silva, if I'm being completely honest. And the whole Chelsea fan base loved Thiago Silva. And I do feel that Thiago Silva is almost a liability and it was evident this game. The pace of the sometimes when Thiago Silva ball, he just takes too long to release the ball. I'm like, okay, we need to speed up the game. We need to speed. Whereas Badiashile and Disasi, as soon as they got the ball, or as soon as Petrovic got the ball, this split. That's when defenders split, it just creates that space for either Cicedo or Enzo to have time on the ball. And I feel when Thiago's playing, I don't know if you guys know this, positionally, when Petrovic has got the ball, he's almost higher than the other defender, or he's just not splitting, giving that extra option in the middle. And it was definitely a lot more fluid. In terms of Sterling, I just feel like there's just nothing there with Sterling. And if you can see how Jackson was tracking back, how he helped Chilwell was not exposed today. In the previous game when Sterling was playing, he was completely exposed. Even when Sterling came on, I noticed Chilwell was a lot more exposed. There was a time where I think it was the left back where they crossed it in. I don't know. Sterling was literally tying his shoelaces at one point.
Yep.
Yeah.
I was just screaming at my TV, fucking run. But it's Sterling, so I'm wasting my breath, really. He's never going to run, is
he? So, yeah, and back to your point about do we need experienced players? I think there's a balance to it. So, Thiago Silva is a 39-year-old. That kind of experience is probably not needed. It's experience of someone at the likes of in the late 20s, 28, 29, someone like Paulinho, just throwing that names out there, someone who's got Premier League experience, he knows the game inside and is at a good age where 28, 30 is like almost their prime age. I think that's the kind of experience we need.
And I hear that, absolutely. It's obviously, when you look at Badiashile, right, obviously he didn't play against Wolves, except when he came on at the end, but still didn't start. And you look at how he played against Liverpool. If Badiashile plays like he did at Liverpool, I don't care. Thiago Silva could be 75 and he would still be better than Badiashile was at Liverpool. But that's the problem, right? Like, if Badiashile and Disasi play like they did today all the time, then Thiago Silva doesn't need to play. But the problem is they don't. And with Thiago Silva, you get a certain level of performance every game. Now, sure, he's had some stinkers. He makes a mistake every now and again. It happens. The older he gets, the more likely that will also happen, right? But he's still, because of how good he is in terms of reading the game, his experience, knowing how the game of football just works, he's not going to drop below a certain level, while the others might. And that's kind of where the difficult part comes from, isn't it? But let's get into these player ratings. And let's start with, I'm still baffled by how good he is, if I'm being perfectly honest. Petrovic, he gives us so much security, in my opinion. Like, I'm never concerned with Petrovic in goal. Anyway, I don't want to go on too much of a ramble. On today, he's made 4 saves. I think 1 or 2 of them were quite good. He couldn't do anything about the goal. His distribution was decent. I'm going to give him a 6.5. I don't think he made anything crazy in terms of saves because Villa just didn't have that many particularly great chances. Maybe I'm forgetting something, then please remind me. But yeah, you probably could say 7. Maybe I would have definitely gone 7 had he kept a clean sheet. And I know it's not at all his fault. But, if you win 3-0, the clean sheet, I would probably have said 7. Now I'm going to say 6.5. Not too different. But yeah, that's what I'd say. Dimitar, what would you give Petrovic on a day like today?
Well, first of all, I have to say that the stream I was watching cut out 5 minutes before the end, so I did not see him concede the goal. So I will give him a 7. I think he did his job basically. He provides stability, and I think he made 1 crucial save at 2-0. When if they could have scored, maybe then you get the game. But I think overall he did what we want from him. So I'm gonna give him a 7.
Fair enough. Did you see the goal yet, or have you not seen it at all?
No, and I think I'm not gonna see it anyway. I don't want to spoil the good impression of the evening.
It was a good goal by them, to be fair. You can't really complain even about any individual that I can think of. So it's not the worst goal to see against us, but fair dues. Honestly, I don't mind the 7, so I'm just going to go along with it. Nashi, would you go along with a 7 too for Petrovic, or do you think maybe a tad lower is more justified?
I'll say a tad low is justified. I'd go along with the 6.5 as well. I think Petrovic, is brilliant. He brings calmness to the team. He's very vocal. He's getting a lot more confidence in his vocal. Even when Gusto must have gave him a really bad pass, he was really angry and let him know that that was a really bad pass. And with the goal, he was stretching and he was coming through a lot of bodies, and he was really low, hit off the inside of the post. You can't down for that. That was just a brilliant goal. So I would give him a just above average, a 6.5.
Fair dues, because Dimitar has kind of slightly convinced me to a 7, but you've now slightly taken me back to a 6.5. Ladies and gentlemen, you get a poll. Please pick between a 7 and a 6.5 for Petrovic, and that is the rating we will put on the screen. Let's do the two centre backs, and let's start with Badiashile. Unfortunately, got injured, but I felt played a good game until he got injured. There was one occasion where Chilwell made a very good run on the left, and he was hesitant with the pass, and then about 5 or 10 minutes later, Chilwell didn't make the run, Badiashile passed, and then the ball went to nowhere. And then Chilwell was like, "Ah, shit, I should have run." So yeah, that happens. I guess them two haven't played together very often because of Chilwell's injury and Badiashile's injuries. So maybe that's fair enough. But I think it was pretty decent. He looked strong in the air, won his duels, made some good blocks. Now, accurate long balls could be a tad better with 2 out of 6, but I like that he attempts them. 2 out of 2 ground duels. Apparently 0 out of 2 aerial duels. My guy, you are huge. Can you not lose aerials, please? But yeah, it's always difficult to rate goalies and defenders when when the opponents didn't do that much attacking wise. It's a bit tricky for me to rate that, because I'm like, okay, you didn't really let much happen. You played it out nicely from the back. But do I give you an 8 or something? Or do I give you only a 7 because the opponent didn't actually ask that many questions from you? I'm not sure. I mean, NX says 9, Max says 7. Literally my problem in a nutshell. Literally my problem in a nutshell. On that note, I'm going to give him an 8. But as I put it down, it feels almost a tad high. I'm going to say 8 for now, but there's every chance that Nation and Dimitar change my mind and tell me that he shouldn't be that high. Maybe I'm kind of thinking 7.5. I'm already giving spoilers out, but maybe 7.5. Nation, I'll go with you first. What would you give by this year? Do you think 8 is way over the top? More 7, 7.5? Where would you go?
I'll go with the 7.5, if I'm being honest. He had a brilliant game too. He won a fair few headers. I don't know the stat you read up, but I noticed. Yeah, 3 very dangerous crosses he put ahead to it, and his passing was brilliant. Except, I'm glad you mentioned that about the Chilwell situation. Yeah, I did notice that there's a time where he passed to Chilwell, and then when he didn't start making the runs, those 2-3 times he did pass, and then Chilwell didn't make the run. It was very strange. That's if that didn't happen, that would have probably brought you up to an 8. But just a miscommunication between the two, and hopefully they can work on that. And like you said, I feel Badiashile should even win more headers. He's massive. Look at his frame. Like, if I were to build a perfect defender, that's how Badiashile would look like. Like,
yeah,
he's got the height. I'm not too sure about his pace. I don't think his pace is not quite there. He's not too slow, but he's not too quick.
Yeah.
He's
average. Like, he's not, like you said, he's not super slow, but he's certainly not fast.
Exactly. So now, hopefully, this injury is not too bad, and he's just maybe a muscle strain.
It's frustrating.
Yeah. So because that was a brilliant performance, that's probably his best performance of the season. And
he hasn't played a lot, to be fair, but yeah.
Exactly, yeah. And like I said, in terms of potential, out of all the defenders we have in our squad, I think he has the highest potential to
even more than Kobo.
I would say so. I just think his passing ability is off the charts. He can literally just, I don't know, he makes those disguised passes where he gives the midfielder a time on the ball. He's done that a lot in this game as well. He makes those passes that you wouldn't expect, and I love when defenders do that, when they pass through the middle instead of just passing side to side. That pass in that really quick pass to a midfielder can start off an attack. simply
Because it breaks the first line, no, absolutely. And I even agree. Badiashila's passing is phenomenal. In my opinion, his best attribute, really. I don't think Colwell is far off levels of passing, but Colwell had to play left back the whole season, so couldn't really show that for us much. But at Brighton, that was kind of his main strength as well. But I think he's just better defensively. I think Badiashile, I don't know, it's almost like he has a fetish for getting turned. The amount of times he gets turned is weird to me. Like, you're good, you understand defending, like, I don't understand. Why do you get down so much? But it is what it is. A 7.5 from you. I think I might adapt it to a 7.5 as well. Dimitar, are you going to go even lower than that? Are you going to go back to my 8? Or are you going to agree with this?
I think 7.5 is fine. Like you said, the defenders did not have a lot to do, but they did their job on time, which means in the first 60-65 minutes, they did okay. After we scored the third goal, sadly, it's normal for the concentration to drop a little bit, but I think they did fine. So 7.5, I think it's fair. And basically what you guys said is true. He passes the ball well. He looks okay when he has his head in the right place, because sometimes his head is somewhere else, like against Liverpool, and then he turns into another player. But yeah, I like him. I really hope he can stay fit and make like 20, 30, 40 games in a row, or starts in a row, or participations in a row, because he can show some potential. Hopefully we can get him fit soon again. Or do we know what the injury was? Any information, or still nothing?
I haven't heard anything yet, but yeah, it looked like a groin. He was holding his groin, so yeah.
Yeah, okay.
That's all I know. That's all I know. I'll stick with you straight away, Dimitar. What about Disasi, his centre-back partner? Much between them? Would you maybe give him the same rating? Obviously, Disasi played the full game. Badiashile came off a little bit earlier with that injury. But so what I'm trying to say with that is Badiashile was off when we conceded. Disasi wasn't. But I don't think Disasi was much at fault. And their stats, honestly, very similar. Just Disasi was in a few more duels, and I felt him a bit more involved defensively, because I felt him and Gusto doubled up on Villa's left side a few times. And not that Gusto kind of mostly dealt with shit on his own, because Gusto was absolutely phenomenal today. But I just noticed Disasi a bit more defensively. What about you? Do you think he deserves better? Maybe the same? What do you reckon?
I think in my eyes they were...
I forgot that late block, if you remember it.
In my eyes, they were both basically the same. One thing which Disasi stood out for me was I think it was on 2-0. He made a phenomenal last-ditch tackle where he tackled as the last man at the edge of the penalty box, and it looked really nice, and I like those type of defending. So maybe a 7.5 or an 8 from me, because I think, like I said, he did his job well. And from what I saw in the first 83 minutes, we kept a clean sheet, so I'm going to go for an 8.
There you go. Maybe this goal-saving block, maybe you also missed that at the end. Like,
yeah, I did not see it. Yeah,
I'm not as sure about as NX is about goal-saving. I think Petrovic might have saved it anyway, but it was certainly heading for goal, and he made a good block. So that is very good. Why the goalkeeper score so low? Because he didn't really have to do much. But hey, you place your rating in the poll, and he will get a 7. Do not worry. But yeah, you said 7.5 or 8 in the end, mate. Sorry.
I would say an 8. I think, like I said, he was a tiny bit better than Badiashile. Although, like I said, I think they both did exactly what they had to do. So it was a good performance overall, in my opinion.
I agree. Naishi, do you agree with an 8? I mean, the goal-saving block that NX mentioned, the tackle that Dimitar mentioned, good moments from him.
Yeah, I'd agree with Dimitar. I think he was an 8 as well. I'll go along with the 8. That block was, I actually think that was a goal-saving block. I agree with that comment from NX. I feel that it had a lot of pace on it, and he looked like he was going to his to Petrovic's far right, and I think that would have went in if he never blocked that. So, and he also made that tackle towards the end. It is a bit of a dangerous tackle. My heart kind of skipped a beat. I thought he might give away a penalty, but it turned out to be a very good tackle. And he was very solid. He was a lot more aggressive as well with Watkins. And Watkins is one of the best strikers in the Premier League. And he didn't give him a sniff. He literally was so dominant. This is another best performance from Disasi, and I was really impressed. And I would actually even say he was man of the match for me. Sorry to kind of skip it ahead, but like,
don't worry.
So
what rank would you give him then? Still an 8, or you're not giving anybody higher than an 8?
I don't think I won't be giving anyone an 8.
No, fair dues. It's fair dues. See, there's a couple I have in mind where something in my mind is even I'm trying to scream 10, which is obviously over the top, and I know is not actually a 10, but we'll get to that in a second. But honestly, I can only go along with it. Dimitar mentioned the tackle. You guys in the chat mentioned the block. Then he kind of, I guess, had that over by the issue, even though on the base of it, they were probably very similar. Both just did a good job. So I think an 8 is about fair. And we will get to that one man or one of the two players who I was really impressed by today. What I want to know is, does Malo Gusto have a twin or something? Because whoever played today was not the same person that played against Wolves at right back. Like, how it could not have been a more different performance from Malo Gusto. He was outrageous today. He got an assist. His defending was just unbelievable to me. Like, I don't know if you guys felt it the same, but every time he was in a defensive situation, he either blocked the cross or he won the ball himself. When he tried to counter, remember that just after half time, when he basically ran half the length of the pitch with the ball on his own, trying to like evade pressure, he was unbelievable in my opinion. Honestly, I could give him a 10, but I'm going to give him a 9. I think he was phenomenal defensively and got an assist. What more can I ask from a right back, really? So maybe a goal, then I would have given him a 10. But I'm still going to give him a 9. For me, I mean, Enzo was phenomenal and scored one of the goals of the season. We'll get to that. So maybe you could argue Enzo was higher, but in terms of pure, like, the game of football rather than an individual free kick moment, I thought Gusto was our best player. I thought he was absolutely brilliant at everything he did today. But maybe that's just me. I'll go to Dimitar first, and now, Neisha, you can explain how he was, how you rated him compared to Disasi. But Dimitar, maybe you won't go quite as high as the 9 for Gusto. Totally fair if you won't. But do you also think he was very good?
I think he was very good, and I think I kind of have a long explanation for that. So I'm gonna try to give it in pieces when we go along with the team. So yeah, he was very good, but we have to keep in mind he had McGinn against him, and McGinn is not a winger, and he's not fast at all. So, like I said before, we pinned down their fullbacks very well. And in that situation, Malo Gusto was always one-on-one with a player who is very much slower than him, who is not a winger, and he had a lot of space in front of him. And I've said a lot of times on the stream, I think he's very agile and very fast. And in this game, that was the perfect opportunity to show it, and he showed it. I think he played well. I don't think he played like a 9, because I think tactically the game panned out in such a way that he could show his talents. I would give him an 8 because I think we did not play individually as well as people think. More of it was a team performance and the execution of some tactics. But like I said, he did what he could, and he played against what's in front of him. So I'm going to go on 8 and not overhype him.
No, fair enough. I also think you made a good point, honestly, in terms of because we pinned their fullbacks back, that made it difficult for them to double up on either flank. And Gusto just had the better of McGinn. At the same time, McGinn was really good at the bridge in the second half.
Yeah, no,
obviously different.
For sure,
pretty sure.
For sure. He did his job. He did his job. That's not in question. Yeah.
But no, I think you made a good point. The game the way the game developed made it a slightly easier game than it could have been for Gusto. But with that easy game, he did a good job.
Yeah.
I think you make a fair point. I think I'm going to stick to my 9, but I'll see what Naishi says, because if it leaves us at an 8.5, it doesn't really matter. Regardless, Naishi, Dimitar said 8. I maybe went slightly overboard with a 9, but I just like him. And hey, let me be happy, all right? I was so angry all day today. Like I said this at the beginning of the stream, when we scored the first goal, I wasn't even fully happy because I'm just like, fuck's sake, it's just going to make Poch stay longer. But the longer the game went on, the better we played. Then that goal by Enzo and celebrations, that was great. So it cheered me up again. So then I was happy again. So I wanted to ride that wave of positivity rather than getting back to being annoyed that Poch is staying for a bit longer. But Neji, what would you give Gusto today?
Yeah, it was a toss between man of the match for me between Disasi and Gusto, and I'm kind of going along with Dimitar because I feel like the game kind of played into his hands. I felt like that he had a lot of space because of Mudryk kind of tucking in, and he almost had that time to kind of show his talent. We know Gusto's got talent. We know he's got he's got the pace. His crossing is really good as well. It's better than what I initially thought. I felt he linked well with Mudryk. And I felt like he had energy throughout the whole 90 minutes. I feel like in previous games he kind of drops off and loses that focus in moments in games, but today his focus was 100% there. And I'm kind of I feel like 8.5 is deserved, and that would maybe push my rating for Disasi as an 8.5. So yeah, so I'll go along with the 8.5. I think he had a very good game, but I am of the opinion that the game played into his hands and he kind of exploited that, really.
See, Nation, I'll be nice to you. I'll drop my rating for Gusto to an 8.5, which with your 8 and Dimitar's 8 gives him an 8. Because your push for an 8.5 doesn't change Disasi's rating, so then at least they get the same. Because I feel like you would be unhappy if Gusto had a higher rating. So I will do that because maybe my 9 was slightly over the top. I do concede that. And just to clarify what Ryan said here. First of all, I don't want to feel like they see that, but just to clarify, I was not upset. I'm just saying I wasn't as happy as I usually am with us scoring. Not upset. That's way too dramatic. But anyway, you're not a fan of the 0.5 scoring. So are we just going to do 5, 6, 7, 8, 9? That's bloody boring, that. Like, we're never going to agree on anything. But anyways, I apologize to you, Max, that you're not a fan of it. But we've been doing that for a while now, so we're not going to go away from that. Let's move over to Ben Chilwell. And they shall let you go first. As shocking as he was against Wolves, not that I thought he was outstanding today, but I thought he was pretty good. What did you make of Ben Chilwell, and what rating would you give him?
Yeah, I think he was very good today. Sometimes I feel like Chilwell holds on to the ball too long. I feel like he was really giving Jackson good balls and kind of almost forcing him to make that run. And I love the little clip balls he kept giving Jackson. And positionally, he was a lot better. He had a lot more energy. Also, he had the tendency to kind of calm it down and drop it to the defense, and he had that kind of experience. His experience kind of shown today, and we kind of needed it. But the only thing that really pissed me off was that time when he tried to do a throw in, and he
dropped the ball.
I almost
that was frustrating. But at the same time, like the ball is wet. Like it just slipped out of his hand. It happens. Do you know what I mean?
We just don't think that though, Laurenz.
But they almost scored. They almost scored after that.
They did. I'm not trying to excuse him, but I'm like, if you've ever picked up a football, sometimes it just slips out of your hand. Like it happens. Do you know what I mean? Like it's obviously it shouldn't happen. And when you saw the replay, his facial expression was kind of hilarious as he dropped it. But yeah, I do see what you're saying. What rating does it in total?
I'll give him a 7. Yeah, I'll give him a 7. He had a solid game, and like I said, he wasn't holding onto the ball. Positionally, he was there. He was freeing up Jackson with his passes. So a good game, 7.
Interesting. Sorry, I was just reading a few comments here that slightly confused me. I won't lie. We'll get to those maybe later if we still have enough time when we get to talking about Poch. But I wanted to find... where is that now? There you go. I think a 7 is about fair, to be perfectly honest. Dimitar, would you go along with a 7 for Chilwell? Do you think maybe a little bit less?
Yes, for sure. He was fine, but that throw really pissed me off as well. I was almost gonna start screaming if we had considered, because this is I love Chilwell. I think he's great at times, but his concentration has been bad since he came back, and I think no one can dispute that. He has to be more concentrated, and he has to stop making like very small mistakes sometimes. I think he was fine today, like I said, but this foul throw can lead to a lot of problems. And I know it's only a foul throw, but if I do that on my Sunday league team, I'm gonna have to go home walking. No one's gonna give me a ride back home after that one. So, from the captain of the team, I would expect a little bit better. So because of that, a 7 without the foul throw, maybe a 7.5 for me. But yeah, a 7, and like I said, he needs to get his concentration.
Throw. That's crazy. Fair play. I love it.
No, seriously, this is such a stupid mistake, and if it leads to a goal, I can guarantee you the way we've been playing, all of the heads would have instantly dropped, and that was a 2-0. So I don't know if we would have been so happy right now if that would have gone in after that foul throw. So that's why. But really, I mean, I think you guys can all agree he needs to be more concentrated. Regardless of that, he looks still a little bit way off when he plays. He's not as sharp, and in comparison to Gusto, he was miles off him.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I'd probably go along with a 7. Honestly, I think you could have probably said 6.5 to 7. I think it's about where it's right. But we move on to Moises Caicedo, and what I was looking for a second ago was a tweet that Pice put out for the first half for Moises Caicedo, because that wasn't interesting. Because in the first half, judging by these stats at least, he was utterly unbelievable. Completed every pass, 5 out of 7 ground duels, 2 out of 3 air duels, fouled 2 times, never dribbled past. And now, because I now looked at his stats and his total ground duels, but then 7 out of 13. So then that means in the second half, he only won 2 out of 6, which is a bit sad. But hey, at least his first half was brilliant. So that, not saying that he was bad in the second half, but maybe not quite as good as in the first half. For me, I've been quite critical of Caicedo, not in the grand scheme of things that I think he's been bad or that I think he should be sold or is a flop or any of those things. But he's been nowhere near good enough for costing £150 million. Now, I know he didn't choose his own price, but Chelsea decided that he was worth that money. And if you decide he's worth that money, he needs to be better. That's how I put it. But today was one of those games where one game is never going to be £150 million, not a fourth round FA Cup game. But today I thought it was very good. Now, because Disasi and Gusto got 8s, I was even thinking about an 8, I'll be honest, but I do think Gusto was quite a bit better. Therefore, I'm going to say 7.5. Neji, what would you give Caicedo?
I'd agree with you, 7.5, because Gusto and Disasi were really good, and I wouldn't put him alongside. But those stats are amazing, and I'm quite surprised. And I don't remember him getting dribbled past. So yeah, he had a very solid game, and I know, Laurenz is a bit harsh on him, but I really think he's talented. I think
I agree with that.
He almost reminds me of Kante, but he's not playing like Kante at the moment. No. But before he came to Chelsea, he reminded me of Kante, and he just needs to get to that level, and then we've got a player on our hands. Really,
just needs to trust his own passing more as well, in my opinion. At Brighton, his passing was so good, and I feel like at Chelsea, he gets the ball, and 95% of the time, obviously he had that super assist against Wolves. The problem is he screwed it up for himself a minute and a half later. But 95% of the time, he just passes it sideways to the right back, to the centre mid, or back to the centre back. But he's so good at passing, just use it more. But maybe it's just part of coming to a new club and things aren't particularly well. Like, obviously, we're second half, like bottom half of the table. Everything's a bit shit, right? So maybe these things will come. I say maybe. They will definitely come. But once he actually shows everything he can do, there is no question in my mind that Caicedo will be an absolute superstar for us. He just needs to do it a bit more regularly than he has been so far. But if he plays like today more often, mate, I ain't flipping complaining. But there you go. Very happy that you agreeing with the 7.5. Dimitra, would you also agree with the 7.5, or would you go for something different?
I really disagree here because I thought that he wasn't that good, and I can explain that.
Please.
I thought so. We all agreed that even though we won, we were not super convincing. For me, the best part of the game was, as I already mentioned, we tactically pinned them down and we did not give them much space. And for that reason, they did not have much space. They could not play their normal, usual way of midfield patterns. So our midfield looked better than it was, and we had more space for the wingbacks. And giving more space to the wingbacks, Chilwell looked better, Gusto looked better.
Sorry, I didn't try to interrupt you. I was trying to add to your point just to make it understandable for the viewers. Because you said like the way we set up tactically, including the midfield, stopped Villa's midfield. But shouldn't that also give our midfield credit? Because sure, the manager can set it up, but the players have to execute.
No, I mean, the Cicedo for me, like most games, did his job. But I don't think he was that good as people make it out to be. And I still don't think he was impactful. Because if you noticed around the 65th minute, right where we scored that goal, we went like 20 yards back. And all of a sudden, Aston Villa began to attack. They began to look a little bit more dangerous. They began to miss some chances. They began to force a save or two. And in that moment, I think it is very clear to see that we still don't have a midfield structure. And even though I think Poch is doing some things right, I think this is his biggest problem. And I think he should focus on that every single day in training. Because we lack a control of the game in the sense we cannot slow down the game. We cannot increase the tempo of the game. The only way we can slow down the game was basically when Cicedo went down with his injury. And that's why I think it was maybe a faked injury or stuff like that, because he just laid down for a minute and a half and then went back up and went to play on the game. So I think that was the only way we could have chilled Villa up a little bit and we could have cooled down their momentum, because they were really trying to force attack after attack after attack, and we could not keep the ball. And I think this is kind of the reason why I'm not impressed with him, because at Brighton, I didn't watch them every week, but when we played Brighton last season, they played us off the park, and he was impressive. But the Cicedo we see now is very conservative, and he always looks for the safe pass. You said it yourself. Most of the time, he does nothing. He just passes sideways and backwards. And I don't know if that's a tactic on the manager, and I don't know if that's just his inability to drive the ball forward. I think what we need to focus on is the fact that when the tactics work like today, we look nice. But when the game against Liverpool happens, our midfield was completely destroyed, our wingbacks were completely destroyed, and individual performances were awful. And I think it kind of comes down to the manager at some point, but the individual performances, in my opinion, are still not enough. And I don't care if he costs 150 million, 50 million, or 5 million. Sometimes the players should have a little bit of a constant level, which they can always fall back to. And you said it yourself with Thiago Silva. He can make a mistake, but you know that 75 out of 90 minutes, he's going to be his usual self. And maybe he makes a mistake, stuff happens. We all remember that game against West Brom when they scored 4 goals, and he was basically at fault for all of them. But for Cicedo, I think when he's good, he does something well, like the assist against Wolves. I was very shocked to see that on the highlight, because I was like, wow, why is everyone saying he had a bad game? And then 2 seconds later, I see the next highlight, and I get it. And then the next highlight when he misses the runner. And then the next highlight when he loses the ball again. And he just needs to be a little bit more consistent, in my opinion, because we can agree there is talent there. But we can also agree this talent is not being utilized for whatever reason. It may be the manager, it may be the player, it may be he's new to the team, it may be some other things. I don't know. Maybe he's sad in his personal life, maybe he has some issues. We will never know probably, but for me, he has to be better. So I'm going to give him a 7, not to be that far much lower than you guys, but I really think we should stop as a fan base sometimes overhyping players after performances.
Just to clarify,
Because
if you want to lower the rating, you need to go 6.5. If you say 7,
yeah, I know. That's why I'm going a 7, not to lower it. So,
Okay.
I mean, like I said, we won. He did his job, but if Villa score an early goal, then we never know what happens, and maybe it happens like against Wolves, maybe not.
Yeah.
The thing is, like I said, we need more from him. We need a little bit of passion because, for example, I'm gonna say that for Enzo later. I also don't think Enzo is being utilized to his best, but Enzo gives passion. Enzo is very passionate.
Yeah.
And today, for me, the most passion Caicedo showed was during Enzo's celebration, pointing to the badge. And I like that, but I want to see something like that when he's on the ball, or when he's doing a tackle, or when something on the pitch is happening. So, in my opinion, like I said, not a bad player, but we need to see more. So, 7, and yeah, the rating stays.
See, I agree with you in terms of everything you said about Caicedo overall. I just don't fully agree with it on today specifically, because I see what you're saying in terms of, okay, we went 3-0 up and then we sat off them. And then that gave them more control, that gave them more chances, etc., etc. You're spot on with that. But what I don't really agree with is that it's supposed to be only a midfield issue. Because for the...
It's not.
So because
sure.
by that logic, then Chilwell, Badiashile, Disasi, Gusto, they should also get almost a lesser rating because they also...
It's not, but I just have to say something. If you remember the game against Luton, we were cruising. Everything was perfect. And then we did the exact same thing we did today. And all of a sudden, Luton, who maybe everyone on the planet agreed had one of the worst Premier League teams pound for player, in the summer, they completely dominated everything. And when that happens, even though tactically everyone's to blame, I still think that a midfield of Caicedo and Enzo should be able to not get completely dominated by Luton's midfield, comprised of Ross Barkley, Tahith Chong, and who knows who. I mean, and these are the types of moments I mean, because in the moments when we kind of don't know what to do, when our plan is just fall back, defend, see what happens, then you can kind of see the real talent, the real...
Again, Dimitar, I'm not sure if
oh, sorry, yeah.
Go on.
Yeah, so I was trying to say, in such games like against Luton, like today, we see what players are made of. And when I see us getting dominated by Luton, for example, and Caicedo's there and he's not impressing me, that's why. That's what leaves a mark in my mind. But yeah.
And on the Luton game, I do also agree. I do also see what you are talking about today, but today didn't... Like, they had a couple of chances, but nothing outrageous, while Luton had one after the other. But I agree with Jay here. I think it's a bit harsh to... And I know you're not saying it's just his fault. I know you're putting it as a midfield collective. But I think if you have young players, Enzo and Caicedo are both 22, and then you have a tactic that works, and I don't even think it's Poch telling them drop deeper, but I think it's Poch not being able to stop them from dropping deeper, because I think it's in a bit of an instinctual thing where they're like, okay, we're 3-0 up now we can relax a little bit, press as hard.
That is true.
And he needs to stop them from doing that, but it's a whole team collective, because if Enzo and Caicedo say, let's pretend, I'm not saying they're doing that, but let's pretend they don't go along with the rest of the team with this whole dropping deeper, well, then the whole midfield is all over the shop as well, because then the gaps change, right? So if say the defense behind them starts dropping, they need to go with them, because if they don't go with them, then they are way too far away from the defense. Do you know what I mean? So I think it's what I'm trying to say is it's not, for me at least, and fair enough, like you can have your own opinion, make your own mind up the way you choose to. For me, it's difficult to pinpoint who is the instigator of these things and who should change it. Because,
no, I mean,
you know.
Let me just say finally, and we can move on. I'm not saying it's completely his fault, and I'm not saying it's that he's the reason we're losing games. What I'm saying is that, for example, we have had players over the years. We have seen a lot of inconsistencies. But when I see how he played today, he was okay. And then when I see the highlight from the Wolves game, where he made 2 or 3 fatal errors, I don't think that we can say it's either all on the manager or it's either all on Caicedo. There is probably a situation where, let's say today, 50-50. Against the Wolves, maybe 70% his fault. Today, if he does something bad, maybe the tactics not that good. Tomorrow, it's going to be a different scenario. What I'm saying is, I think people need to stop hyping him up when he has a relatively good game, because if next game he makes 2 mistakes, then they have to bash him again. And I don't think also that's constructive, and I don't think that helps us as a fan base. Of course, I know I can't control everyone's opinion, but that's just what I think. Yeah,
I hear that. I hear that. I mean, obviously, I get what you're saying, but at the same time, he didn't make mistakes today, right?
No,
like, obviously,
he
I get
didn't,
your
yeah.
examples of Wolves, but that didn't happen today. Which is maybe that's us being a bit too nice, because he's made a fair few mistakes in multiple games, whether it's losing the ball, whether it's making bad tackles, giving fouls away unnecessarily and stuff like that. And maybe today he didn't do that, hence why a lot of people are a lot of high praise. But there you go. We move on to Enzo Fernandez, and I want to start it off with a little picture of his celebration. I guess there's 2 pictures of his celebration, but I want to start with this one. Because obviously there was a few very questionable reports about, Enzo Fernandez wants to leave. Now, earlier today, I think it was, his agent came out. That's not true. Everyone knew it wasn't true, really. I heard it wasn't true from source. I was like, okay, I wasn't particularly concerned. But I love the fact that he turned up with this celebration. He did like a whole Leonardo DiCaprio. I'm not fucking leaving. Brilliant. So that was great. And oh my days, can we just talk about this for a second? What a goal. Like, Raheem Sterling scored 2 wonder free kicks already this season at Newcastle. And what was the other one? Middlesbrough? Was that the other one?
Middlesbrough, I think. Yeah, Middlesbrough, yeah.
Yeah, Middlesbrough.
There you go. This is another part of the celebration. It's like, it looks like Enzo got injured or flipping died.
Yeah.
He's running out with his shirt. It's kind of hilarious. But what a goal. What a free kick. Utterly unbelievable. Wow. Outrageous. Like, so many people talk about his shooting. It's like, he needs to stop shooting. It's it Rose said every time, blah, blah, blah. What a hit. My God. I mean, maybe I'm forgetting one, but for me, probably our goal of the season so far. Oh, yeah, actually, maybe it was Preston, not Middlesbrough. It could be. I'm not even sure. Was it? I feel like it was more recent than Preston. I don't know. Whatever game it was. Enzo, for me, was brilliant today. Not only the goal, but that goal in particular was outrageous. Naishi, what a goal that was. I like, wow. When he would, like, obviously him, Palmer, and Mudryk were stood there, and it almost looked like not arguing, but like discussing who's gonna take it. Like, you're not gonna see a better free kick than that. Like, it's you're gonna struggle to hit a better free kick than that free kick. What a goal! And what did you make of the performance overall, Naishi?
First of all, the goal, I did not expect that from Enzo. I think I've come on the stream and kind of been harsh on his shooting ability. I've really highlighted his weakness in shooting, but I really did not expect it. I actually said it. So when he took it, it was just amazing. It was top bins. It was right in the corner. No key. Even if you put 2 keepers there, they're not saving it. It was an amazing.
Martinez is a good keeper as well. It's not like he scored this against Preston, right? Like, he scored this against a top keeper.
And I'm not too sure how far out it was as well. It was at least 30 to 35 yards. Like, that was almost tempted to say, I don't know, is that me backing up?
I don't know. So both of you are sometimes dropping out, but maybe it's also my connection. I hope it's not my connection. But keep talking, mate. It's all good.
Yeah. So that was an amazing, and I love the celebration. I love. I think it was Jackson who was even kissing his shirt.
Yeah.
Jackson is a funny guy, you know. Jackson is a funny guy. I mean, we'll get to Jackson later, but when towards the end of the game, when all of a sudden he just tripped over the ball, just proper stacked it. That's hilarious. But yeah.
Jackson reminds me of, just going off topic, he reminds me of Diego Costa. I don't know, he's just got that little edge about him. Yeah. He always winds up players and stuff. He's hilarious.
Yeah, he does have a hint of that. I do agree.
Yeah, back to Enzo. Yeah, amazing. I'll give him an 8. He was passing. He always had his head up and he's spraying the balls. Like, Enzo is a very good player. Like, when I think about the midfielders out there, there's not many better than Enzo. I know maybe that's been a bit far-fetched. I think of players like Bellingham, other good midfielders. See, I'm running out of names. Enzo's really, and we're really lucky to have him. Like, this player won the World Cup. Like, what we're lucky to be like he's wearing a Chelsea shirt. That's why there's maybe rumors of him possibly thinking about leaving. So we're really lucky to have him, and it's like he was amazing. I just hope he can be a tad more consistent. I think he just needs to work on his defensive game because that he's got everything. He's got everything about him, and yeah, I'll give him an 8.
There you go. I would probably agree with an 8. You know what? Actually, I'll say 8.5, just because I think the goal was that ridiculously good. I feel like Dimitar is probably going to go a tad lower anyway, so even if I go 8.5, it's not going to change anything. But I just want to, and that takes you into it as well, Dimitar, because for me, Enzo was, I'm not sure if he on his own accord or Poch, I don't know, but he, to me, felt used better today. He dropped deeper when more regularly. He was often next to Cicedo and they kind of passed themselves out of pressurous situations, like quick 1-2s between each other to get out of a press, which the gaps between them have usually been way too big between the two to actually ever get out of situations together. Like Jorginho and Kovacic often did that as well. And I like to see that because, and I keep saying this, to me, Enzo can, I don't have a problem with Enzo getting involved in attack like Frank Lampard did. And I'm not saying he's anything like Frank Lampard, but I'm saying that because a number 8 can be involved in attack and in defense or in build-up, right? Like, that's the point of a number 8. A box-to-box midfielder is supposed to have the stamina, have the legs to be involved in attacking, to help in build-up, to help defensively. That's what the number 8 is supposed to do. And in my opinion, he can do that. We just need to also let him sit deep enough to help us in build-up, because his passing and his vision, but also it's not as simple as passing and vision. I think he's, compared to Caicedo, and you and me, Dimitar, spoke about this a few minutes ago, Enzo is not like Caicedo where he chooses the simple pass. Enzo will not very often choose the simple pass. Now, it might not always work out, and sometimes he's maybe missing a run of a teammate and everything, but when, and I do hope eventually, most likely with a different manager, but eventually I hope things will click, and then I think Enzo will, by the whole world, will be considered one of the best midfielders in the world, because I think talent-wise, there's very few better. I think he has stamina to run all game. I think he is fairly strong. He's not quick, but he doesn't mind going into a tackle. He's not scaring away of anything and anyone. Like you touched on, he's very passionate. He will flip and try his socks off. And if he can add a few goals every now and again, if you imagine he scores like 3 or 4 free kicks in a season, well, laughing all the way to the bank. Do you know what I mean? But Dimitar, I said 8.5. Nashi said 8. What could you give Enzo Fernandez today? And please speak about the free kick goal as well.
I'm gonna give him 8.5. And I think the reason for that is, of course, the goal, but mainly because today he showed not his full potential, but I think what we should want to see from him. And you said it yourself, he was combining better with Caicedo. That is true. He was finding a little bit more space, and that is also true. And I think part of it was because, like I said earlier, Jackson was playing much further up the pitch than Mudryk, for example, or even Sterling would normally do. And what happens normally is Caicedo gets into a space. Enzo gets into a space, and like 2 meters on the left of him is Mudryk. And then normally when we play this midfield with Gallagher is also like 5 meters to the right of him. So there is not so much space where you can control a certain area of the midfield, because they have to make like very short passes. And making short passes in the enemy part of the pitch is sometimes dangerous because it's easy to intercept, and it also means that your players are stacked in the same position. And if they lose the ball, you get countered. But today, because Gallagher was pressing very high up the pitch, and because Jackson was generally higher, Enzo had a little bit of space. And that's what I like to see. And I think that's what we should be aiming for. Now, I don't know how we get that if we play with a bit more conventional striker, or if we get to play a team which is in a low block. But today, against a normally good side Villa, Enzo showed his class. And I agree with you, 8.5. He's very passionate. The goal was amazing. And yeah, I like it.
Fair dues. Fair dues. My apologies that I thought you would give him a lower rating. I thought it would be a collective midfield thing, your issue that you spoke on, Caicedo. But I was wrong. We move on to Conor Gallagher, who I also thought did really, really well today. On FOTMob, he actually got the highest rating of anybody with an 8.6. 90% pass completion, 2 out of 2 successful dribbles, 5 out of 6 ground yaws, very strong. The others are like 1 out of 2 tackles, 1 out of 2 long balls. good, but not outrageous numbers anywhere. But a great first goal, I thought, in terms of
Amazing.
he was involved in the build-up. Great finish into the top corner. Fantastic finish. And a goal we needed. Now, I say that. Obviously, we got an early goal against Wolves as well, but we bottled it 2 minutes later. We got close to doing the same again today. Thankfully, we were let off, and that didn't happen because God knows what would happen. But yeah, an early goal because I said this yesterday. If Villa took the lead, I don't even want to know what the reaction from the away end of 6,000 would have been. Like, that would not have been good for the.
We
the
don't
team.
want to know, really. We don't.
But the way it went, fantastic. And I thought he had a brilliant game. He hit a couple of his tackles when Villa were trying to counter us. Phenomenal. His pressing with Palmer high up, pressing their centre-backs, forcing them into long balls or stealing the ball from them. Absolutely brilliant. I thought he had a very, very, very good game. And honestly, with the goal scored as well, I think he warrants an 8. Maybe you boys think a little bit lower. That's fair enough. But I think Conor Gallagher now, not every game. And for example, against Wolves, he wasn't good. And for example, against Middlesbrough, it was good that he didn't play because he wasn't necessary in a game like this. But when you play somewhat good teams, and obviously against Liverpool, it all flopped. I understand he was also not good. But it wasn't Gallagher's own fault. Like, it wasn't like Gallagher had a shock and everyone else was good, right? But in games like a Villa, like a Liverpool, like, I don't know, we're playing Arsenal fairly soon, we're playing Newcastle, all sorts of games, right? In these games, Gallagher is so important to us. And I understand people that say Gallagher shouldn't be this important to us. That's a whole separate issue. But that's not a Gallagher problem. That's not even really a Poch problem. That's a recruitment and medical staff problem. Because if Lavia was fit and Cicedo could play a number 8 and Lavia would be the number 6, Gallagher would probably have been sold already and would barely be playing. But because we can't seem to keep players fit, and people forget this, the best trait to have in football is availability. And I can't remember the last time Conor Gallagher missed a game outside of suspension. Conor Gallagher is always, and I mean always fit. And I think you could probably chop a leg off Gallagher and he'd still play. It's like, he's ridiculous. He's ridiculous in that sense. But yeah, I'll say 8. Naishi, what would you give Gallagher?
Yeah, I'm giving a lot of 8s today.
Hey, 8 is good.
Exactly. Yeah, I'll go along with 8 as well. I think it was that goal, as you said. It was it set the tone of the match. We needed that first goal. If Aston Villa scored the first goal, it would have just killed our confidence. It could have potentially been a 3-0, 4-0. This team relies so much about the confidence and feeling in the game, and I feel like when they go behind, they just go down tools and don't know what to do, and just the confidence just goes out the window. And his pressing is amazing. As you said, we need Gallagher for the pressing. He doesn't get tired. I've mentioned this before. The guy literally, he never gets tired. He's always got passion. He's always pressing. He's always putting in a shift, always putting in a tackle. And as you said, there was a really dangerous counterattack, and then he just put in a tackle, and we really needed that tackle, and it got us back into shape. And what else? I think there was also he just done his job as well. So if he never scored that goal, I would have given him a 7 or 7.5. But that goal pushed him to an 8, and I loved towards the end of the game in the corner. I think I don't know who was trying to mark him. It was literally, he megged him at one point, and it just killed the game really, and just finished the game off. Because honestly, I was even scared the last 5 minutes. I really thought maybe Aston Villa would come back after they scored that last that goal from Diaby. So
yeah, I was a little bit concerned. At least if they would have scored a second, I would have been concerned. Now I'm gonna get something up on screen now. I hope, because it's like nothing is really seen now. I don't have to deal with copyright issues here, but it's just so hilarious. I've just seen it now. It's hilarious. Look at Conor Gallagher's expression when
for the goal. Yeah.
Look at his face. That is funny. Go on, Conor Gallagher. Big up yourself. There you go. Let me bring up the rating again. Nation, did you want to finish anything on that, or shall I move it on to Dimitar?
Yeah, nothing really much to add. Like you said, we need him in the big games. I feel like when we play the top 4, we need Gallagher. He's essential for that press, and you can tell he's like a teacher's pet. He'll listen to every word that Pochettino or whoever manager is, what the instructions. He's someone
Sometimes maybe a bit too much, which is the problem when a manager isn't great. But yeah, there you go. No, fair enough. Dimitar, 2 8s plus a funny meme. So good day's work for Gallagher. What would you give him?
I also agree with the 8. I think the goal was a perfectly executed finish. He, like you said, participated in the build-up. I think also today his dribbling impressed me a little bit more than usual. I think he was very composed on the ball. He didn't rush it, because sometimes, especially when we don't know what to do with the ball, he rushes his passes. But I think today he took like that split second you need to analyze the situation and then lay off the ball. So yeah, I think he also did pressing well. So yeah, I think 8 would be perfectly suited for him. Yeah.
Very good. Dimitar, I'll stick with you. We'll go straight over to Noni Madueke. Got himself an assist for that first goal by Conor Gallagher that we just spoke about. I thought a smart layoff. In general, that dribble on the counter-attack, that was probably the most impressive individual thing that he did. He literally ran past 2 Villa players, one of them trying everything to stop him, but he was like, absolutely no chance. That one of the best attributes for Madueke. Like, he's quick, sure. He can dribble, sure. But I think what's quite impressive about him is that he is a fast, agile, dribbly style winger, but he's really strong. Like, it's not easy to push Madueke off the ball. Like, he's really strong. What did you make of him today? Good assist, overall good performance. What did you make of him?
I really liked the entire attack for the first goal. I think this is what I would want Chelsea to be. I agree. People knowing where their teammates are, people picking out the right passes, and people taking the right decisions. Because Madueke could have tried something else. He could have tried to dribble, but he laid off the perfect pass to Gallagher, and we scored. So yeah, I also agree with you. He was very good at dribbling. He was always dangerous. He basically did what Jackson did, but he did it with a greater pace, because Madueke is a bit faster and a bit more agile. And he did exactly the same thing. Every time he got the ball, he was thinking, how can I go forward? He wanted to be direct. And I think he did a good game. I think he pressured like I said, the opposition left back, and that was very, very nice. He also tried to track back, although it was not needed because the Villa left and right back were not that great forward. But yeah, I think he did well. I don't think he deserves an 8.5, but I think for sure an 8 in my book, because he was always dangerous, and I didn't think he put a foot wrong.
Fair dues. Nashi, would you go along with an 8 for him as well? We are giving a lot of 8s out, but hey, who's complaining? It just means we had a good game for once.
Well, we beat a good team, so it's normal to give better grades. I mean, it's not like we beat Barnsley, so.
Exactly. Hey, and chances are, if we played Barnsley, we probably would have lost. But Nashi, what would you give Madueke? Would you go along with an 8? Maybe it's a bit too high for you. What do you reckon?
No, I would go with an 8 as well. You can't really go any lower. What I love about Madueke, you always know that he's in the game. You always notice he's always productive. He's always taking his man on. When I look at a winger, I always want the winger to take the man on, because defenders hate it. I've previously been a defender. I hate it when players take me on, because you just don't know where they're gonna go. And I love it when wingers pass it back or cut back in. It's more dangerous if you take your man on and keep him guessing, keep him guessing throughout the game, and that's what Mudryk does. And like you touched on, Laurenz, and also Pies mentioned, is by his strength. He's really strong on the ball. Like I believe it was in the first half when he just dribbled on the wing, and honestly, I don't know who was marking him, just pushed him off and carried on dribbling. And I feel like it was
almost like Hazard with Coquelin back for that.
Yeah.
Crazy.
It was definitely like that Hazard dribble against Arsenal, and he's almost like he gets quicker with the ball as well. I don't know if you guys know, he's almost quicker with the ball.
You know, how Dimitar said Madueke just did it fast. I think Madueke with the ball is fast. I think without the ball,
for sure,
Jackson is actually quite a bit quicker. But Madueke is just a good dribbler. One of these people that can just be almost as quick as they are without the ball when they have the ball. But yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, and The only thing, and this is not looking at this game, I think he just needs to work on his decision making. He just needs to work on his end product. And he's young; he can work on that, and he has time to work on that. It's just that. So the first one, the layoff was amazing. To have that awareness, to see that Conor Gallagher's at the edge of the box, waiting perfectly. I don't know if you guys seen the replay. You could see him saying "shoot" to Conor Gallagher. So that was really good.
Really good. Good communication, good work. I do find it like, why is he doing a KSI and constantly running around with a headband? Like, is he hiding the forehead, the hairline? Like, well, why is he doing that? I don't really understand. But hey, you do you, Nutty. You do you. I'll be honest, I was maybe considering a 7.5 just because I thought maybe it was a little less impressive than maybe Gallagher and Gusto. But yeah, I'm going to go along with an 8. Not that I'm going to come change it anyway, but fair dues. He was very, very good. We move on over to the other side, to the other winger today, Nicolas Jackson. Now, a lot of us, sometimes including myself, have been very critical of him previously in the season. Then, we had Broja. Broja is now not here anymore. Jackson, and because Broja was supposed to have this chance while Jackson was at the African Cup of Nations, instead, Broja was left alone. Jackson is back. Now isn't playing striker on the wing. And he was brilliant. Like the way he, every time he got the ball, he was direct, he was quick. He loved the step over. He, in a sense, created or set up the first goal, scored the second goal himself. If I'm not mistaken, his first headed goal for Chelsea as well, which, it took him long enough. He's been so far absolutely dreadful in the air, but he got a headed goal today, which is good going. He also created the most chances in the match with 4, according to the stats I'm seeing here. Completed 18 of 21 passes, which is pretty good. Apparently only 1 out of 2 dribbles. Felt like more than that. But anyway, 1 out of 1 crosses, which is, I can't ask for more than 100% ratio. 1 out of 1 tackles. 4 out of 8 ground duels. Sure could maybe be a little bit better, considering he is quite strong and tall for a striker. But in general, I thought it was a very, very good performance. And Jackson today showed what we missed when we didn't have Jackson. That's what I felt anyway. And I'm almost tempted to give him an 8.5. I would have been more willing to do that if Gusto had an 8.5 as well. Now that it's only Enzo, I feel I'm slightly overdoing it. So maybe I'll say 8. But depending on what you guys say, maybe I'll push it up to an 8.5 because maybe not directly his individual performance was an 8.5, but I thought the impact he had on the team was quite significant with the way he played, the way he was disciplined defensively, the way he made runs offensively, the way he was direct, aggressive. I just felt really helped the rest of the attack be good as well. And another thing I like about Jackson is, there's players that say Mudryk. When Mudryk isn't confident, Mudryk will just not do anything. Like Naishi said, he will just pass the ball back, not take a man on. Jackson don't give 2 shits. Like there's no such thing as I care about what other people say. Jackson will get the ball and try something. It might not work, but I don't think Jackson has had a game where he's not tried. Like Jackson, when he plays striker, he will drop deep, receive the ball, try to lay it off, make runs. Now, he might flop at finishing sometimes, or he might do something wrong here and there, but he will never just stop. And he will never just be scared, be cautious. He will always try. He will always back himself to pull something off. And I rate that. Now, maybe sometimes overdoing it a tiny bit, but at the end of the day, he's still really, really young. But what I want to touch on today, he just felt today, like the recruitment. You look at him today, and I'm like, yeah, you clearly are a winger, not a striker. Now, you can play striker, obviously. You've shown it. You've scored 9 or 10 goals, whatever it is now. But at heart, the way he dribbles on the wing, that man is a winger, not a striker. Like, no, you can tell me whatever you want. That man, in his soul, is a winger and not a striker. Now, maybe that can be taught out of him over the years, but it's not been long enough that he moved to striker. Yeah, he comes from barefoot football. Yeah, he played barefoot. He didn't have a pair of football boots, I think, until he turned 16, which is like, he's only 22, so that's only 6 years ago. When you think about that, that's 2018. Right? Like, okay, I guess he turns 23 at some point this year. So maybe you want to say 2017. But even still, that's so recently that he's not even like, maybe these are also small factors when you get players in that aren't from England, that aren't from, the middle of Europe, where there's all sorts of football academies everywhere. When players come from like slightly poorer places in the world when you're playing on the street without football boots. Obviously, your development is going to be a little bit slow because you're not taught how to do all sorts of crazy things when you're 8. You're only taught them when you're 18 and you move to Europe, right? But yeah, I'm going to say 8 for now. But maybe you know what? No, I'm gonna stick to my guns. I'm going to do a Jackson, not care what other people think. I'm going to say 8.5. Maybe you boys lower it, but I'm going to give him an 8.5. Dimitar, I'll let you go first. What do you reckon, Jackson? 8.5 overdoing it? Would you go along with it? What do you think?
I think an 8 for me. I think basically he again, like I said a lot of times on the stream, he did his job. And like I said, he was direct. And I also like that when I see that the winger is direct, when the winger is trying stuff, when the winger is asking questions. This is what I want from my wingers, and I love it. On your point, is he a winger or a striker? I think he is a left-sided forward. I'm not sure that as a conventional winger, if we have a heavy number 9, he would work as well. I think he works well because we have a fluid attack. And I don't know if we can come up with the best suiting combination for him and Nkunku, Palmer, Sterling, Mudryk, and everyone. But what I saw today from Jackson is something I want to see from Mudryk, because Mudryk is also fast, and I think Mudryk can also dribble. But his confidence is so low. So yeah, Jackson performed miracles on the wing, but I still think he's a left-sided forward more than a winger, if I have to make an analysis on that.
Chilwell playing left back, you don't want Jackson as your winger. But if you have Chilwell behind him and Jackson can come inside a bit, then it will work a little bit better. There you go. No,
that is also true. And I think also if you have Enzo on the form he is today, you also want a Jackson, because Jackson will give him space. And Enzo sometimes needs space. Because, like I said earlier, when Mudryk goes up in ass 1 meter left from him, then Enzo can't do anything.
Yeah, all Enzo can do is roll him the ball, which is pointless.
Yeah, so. and they make this 1 meter pass, which makes no sense. But yeah, so without wasting a lot of time on that, like you said, he did great. I'm gonna go for an 8 because I think basically all of our forward line was an 8, which is still very high. But yeah, I'm gonna go for an 8.
Fair dues. Neshi, are you going to go for an 8 as well? Or are you going to go 8.5? Maybe for something completely different. What do you reckon? What do you make of Nicolas Jackson? And where do you stand on him? Is he a winger? Is he a striker? Even though I think Dimitar kind of hit the nail on the head. It's really a mix of the two. But I still feel like at heart, he's a bit more of a winger than he's a striker.
Yeah, I would completely agree with Dimitar. Like, he's in between a wing and a striker. He's
like Timo Werner in that sense, isn't he? Not that otherwise he's like Timo Werner, but in that sort of positional limbo.
Exactly, yeah. I wouldn't see him as an out-and-out winger that crosses balls, whips in balls. No, he's more of like in the middle. I wouldn't see him as a central striker that holds up the ball. Well, to be fair, his hold-up play is not awful. Which I like, but he's a hybrid between like a left centre forward. It reminds me a lot like Jota from Liverpool. He really does remind me of like Jota.
He's taller, but otherwise, yeah.
Yeah, so he had an amazing game, and I feel we really missed Jackson when he went to the AFCON. Like, I'm kind of happy that he went to AFCON, because now the fan base are trying to realizing how important it is. I feel like
yes,
the attack is a lot more fluid. I love Jackson. I love his attitude. He just needs to work on his being clinical. Well, looking at today's game, he was very clinical. I think that was his first chance. Yeah, first chance, and it head as well. In our last stream, Laurenz, we mentioned about how poor his heading ability, but he really took his chance, and that was a brilliant.
And I also felt like that cross almost hit it. It felt like he scored with his nose, and he didn't even look phased after.
He scored with his eye.
And maybe it was here. Yeah, that could be. Because I was like, if that hit you on the nose, your nose would be so mad. And he was running off celebrating. So maybe you make a good point. Neshi, would you go 8.5 or 8?
8.5. So yeah, I'll go for 8. Really liked his performance.
Very, very nice. And we move on to the last player of the starting 11, Cole Palmer. Now, he probably gets a little bit lesser rating than the others. Today, I still always feel like when Palmer plays there, Palmer is a bit of a sacrificial lamb, because he makes the team maybe function a bit better because his press works. He reads the game so well in terms of trying to cut out passing lanes. Like the amount of, against Middlesbrough, for example, in that first leg, he almost set up all the chances himself by stealing the ball away from them. Now he missed all of them, but he's really good at somehow. It's like Nizar Kintele a couple of weeks ago tweeted this. He almost has a superpower that opponents just pass him the ball. And I think that works really well for the team. Him being there, being fluid. Sometimes he also dropped over to the right and then Mudryk came a bit more central, like Dimitar touched on earlier. It was just very fluid. The whole thing was very fluid. And I like it. Even though I guarantee if, say, Nkunku started up front and Palmer was on the right, I think Palmer as an individual would have played better. I'm not sure if the team would have played as well. I think so. But maybe then you'd have the different style of play in Mudryk and Palmer on the right, but that would have affected things. But yeah, for Palmer himself, it's not maybe ideal to be that striker false 9, but for the team, it worked. So as a collective, I'm going to give him a 7. I still think he did good things that were important for the team. But in terms of effectiveness, he didn't get an assist, didn't get a goal. Ground duels, 2 out of 5. It's all right, I suppose. Passing accuracy was pretty good, 17 out of 21. But yeah, nothing outrageous that he did. He could have scored on maybe one occasion when he dragged a shot wide. But yeah, I'll say 7. Honestly, you could probably also give him a 6.5 if you wanted to. But we'll see what you boys think as well. Nashi, I'll go with you first. What do you make of Palmer? And on a day like today, what rating would you give him?
You know what? I would actually go lower. I would go 6.5, maybe even a 6, but I'm going to go with 6.5.
Okay.
I didn't really notice him that much, if I'm being honest. He had a few chances cutting in and then taking a shot. And what really annoyed me, he had this moment where he had the chance, he beat the man, and then he beat the man again, and then he didn't cross it in. And it was like that really frustrates me when a player does that. When you beat a player and you do it again, you don't need to do it again. You just put the ball in or pass it to a player. So in terms of that, I didn't really notice him that much, except for a few dribbles here and there. Yeah, I would give him an average rating. And back to your point about the pressing, he's a very intelligent player. That's why he does that press so well. He knows, he's almost like he reads the player, the player on the ball, which is why he has so many balls. He's
just Pep football. He just learned football from Pep.
Coach, you just read my mind. I think it's that education from Man City, knowing when to press, when to block off, what areas to kind of block the passes. And like you said, it's that education from Man City. I don't know why Sterling didn't bring that over to Chelsea, but
he left it. He left it in Liverpool on the way up.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I'll give him a standard 6.5.
Fair dues. Now, Dimitar, finish that Palmer rating off for us. I said 7, maybe slightly nice. Like I said, I could have also said 6.5. I more gave him that extra 0.5 because I felt he had a positive impact on the team as a whole, even if as an individual he didn't do anything special. How did you see it? What rating would you give him?
I actually thought he was very good. I think that his pressing was really the key to the entire tactical setup working, because you guys said it, he always finds the correct spot to take the ball, and that may be because he comes from Man City, but he really reads the game very well. And he also times his pressing runs very well, because sometimes I've noticed with very fast, very young players, they are very eager to press very early. And if you guys remember, under Lampard, Mount used to do that sometimes when he would just be running like a headless chicken because he was pressing too early and the press was not working as intended. But with Palmer, he just times the run perfectly, and he really gets up in the nose of the opposition defenders and they don't know what to do with the ball. So I'm going to say a 7.5 because I really think that's an important quality. And I really think that without his intuition for pressing, the whole attack would work very differently, even if we keep the safe shape.
Yeah, no, I think so. Overall, fair enough. We leave us at a 7. Let me quickly go through the subs. I don't think any of them came on early enough to really get a rating, but I'll write them down anyway. Interestingly, I'm not sure if that was officially like that, according to football, but Thiago Silva came on for Palmer. Interestingly, we did play a back 3 at the end. Now, you could argue that we did concede at the end, so maybe it didn't quite work out. But it was still interesting that the Poch changed it. Obviously, there was a few reports over the last couple of days that internally Poch is considering, or Poch and his coaching staff are considering changing to a back three, and there was debate whether that would happen today. Obviously, then we heard that Thiago Silva was dropped. Well, I heard that. I'm not sure if everyone heard it, but and then obviously because of Cole being injured and Chalobah not being fit yet, that meant unless Alfie Gilchrist starts, we couldn't play a back three because we didn't have 3 available centre backs then. But just as a quick question, because we're not going to do the subs, really, there's not much to say on them. Do you think we should consider changing to a back three? I'll start with you, Dimitar, because if you have Chile is better as a left winger than he is as a left back. If you have Colwell left centre back or Badiashile, Thiago Silva central centre back, Disasi right centre back, you help Thiago out a little bit. He becomes a little bit less of his lack of pace maybe becomes less of an issue. He doesn't have to do as much of the build up because there's one left and right of him. Gusto can bomb forward a little bit more. There's more protection for Enzo and Caicedo behind them. So maybe there's less scrutiny on Caicedo defensively. And I also think Palmer and Nkunku are perfectly suited to be like inside 10s rather than wingers. So I think a 3-4-3 or 3-4-2-1, whatever you want to call that formation, would suit these two really well. Or maybe you would even put Jackson as the left inside 10 and you play Nkunku up front, or just make it fluid as a whole. I think can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah.
Good. Yeah. What was I trying to say? Yeah, I just think the players we have and the players that are in form, not Mudryk, not Sterling. Oh, to be fair, Mudryk did very well today, but if Mudryk and Sterling aren't really going to work that well anyway, at the moment anyway, why play out and out wingers? If Palmer and Nkunku, kind of Jackson, they all suit this more narrow wing position anyway. Is it something to consider for you to switch to a back three, Dimitar? Or
I personally developed an allergy for this formation after 2 years of Thomas Tuchel.
Same.
Even though we won the Champions League with it, I was never a big fan of it, and I think that was kind of the reason why we wasted Lukaku in the first place, because Tuchel never wanted him, and Abramovich and the board forced them to integrate him in a 4-3-3, in a 3-4-3. But that's another story. So I think Poch should try and stick with his guns and just figure out something with this formation, which you are showing right now. I think it can be done. The question is whether Poch can be a smart enough manager to see it, and if the players are good enough to keep a consistent level. Because if I had to choose, I would stick with this one and just try and make it work.
Fair dues. Neshi, how do you see that one? You think it's something that we should consider? Obviously, I still think Pochettino will get sacked in the next few weeks. So it's only delaying the inevitable, and then we'll need to see who the new manager is, what to do. But like I say, I just think it suits the currently somewhat in form and fit players better than the formation that we actually play.
No, I would go with Dimitar 100%. I'm absolutely sick of that formation at 3 at the back. Honestly, I don't want to see that again. He makes me sick to really rinse that formation out, and I'm sick of it. I'd rather keep persisting with this 4 at the back, because it's something new, and it just gives more bodies up front, up on the pitch. And I feel like with 5 at the back, there'll be games where you just drop deep and then you almost like sitting parking the bus, and I hate that. I'd rather have a front foot team, numbers up the field. And I feel he should stick with his formation. And if it means him losing his job, at least stick with your guns. You know what I mean? Be a man and just stick with your guns and stick with your principles, really. And if he wins the League Cup, that would definitely buy him time. He'll even buy him time with the fans.
I mean, he won't win the League Cup, but yeah, if he does. Yeah. No, see, and just to clarify, by the way, I'm fully on your side in terms of I am sick of it. I hate it. Not even just since Tuchel, but since Conte's second season. I despise everything to do with the back three. Now, again, I was thinking about this more today while I was fuming about everything anyway, and I was like, this is all going to shit. Now, obviously this kind of game, this kind of result always changes the vibe a little bit. So now I'm a little bit less of this idea as well than I was, say, in the afternoon today. But yeah, I don't really want to see it anyway, but I don't know.
I remember when Tuchel came.
Makes us more
when Tuchel, Yeah, I remember when Tuchel came, you made like 3 or 4 videos on the topic of how many formations he used every game. And there was like 7, 8, 9 formations a game. And then he played every single game, every single minute, the exact same formation.
It was so annoying. It was so annoying. I agree completely. But yeah, I put all the subs on screen. Sterling came on from Mudryk, Nkunku, Thiago Silva, and Gilchrist were the second set of subs. What was his face? Carney Chukwuemeka was supposed to come on. He already had his shirt on. In the end, didn't come on. Not sure what happened there, but hey, it is what it is. We finish our discussion off of Pochettino. Honestly, I was considering just ignoring his existence and not giving him a rating today, but we probably can't do that. I'll be honest, in the grand scheme of things, he did a good job today. I still would like to believe that the players just ignored all of his instructions and did all of this despite him rather than because of him, but that's probably not the reality, is it? So pick the team that worked, pick the team that was a little bit different, play Jackson on the wing, play Palmer up front, not something that necessarily maybe also the opposition saw coming, the way we attacked. I don't think they necessarily saw coming, which is why it worked as well as it did. So what can I really say? I don't know. Like, obviously the manager rating is tough. The way I just said it, you could argue give him a 10 because what did he do wrong? Nothing. But I'm going to give him an 8. And I hate it. It hurts my heart to give him such high rating, but I have to. What can I do? He did a good job today. What can I say? Nashi, what would you give Poch today?
Yeah, I would give him a 9, honestly. I know I'm
That's so good, bro.
I'm out as well, like, regardless of what he. But I feel like the lineup was perfect. We really needed that lineup. Literally, I would agree with 100% with what he did. I would have maybe put Jackson up, but what he did actually worked better than what I wanted for the lineup. So I think he really done a good job, and he was a lot more active around the manager's box areas. I didn't see him sit down once. I hate that when managers, even when you're winning or losing, get up and try and change something and try and seem engaged in the game. But yeah, he done. And my ad with the subs, I don't know if you guys seen Nkunku's touch. It was Berbatov-esque, and that touch was just amazing.
I hope I see a clip of it somewhere later on Twitter because that was outrageous. It's true. It's true. The whole sitting down thing, by the way, like, it almost annoys me even more when managers are like super active while you're winning, but then when you're losing, they sit there and do fuck all. I'm like, no. While you're winning, while we're winning, you can sit down. They don't need you. Everything's going all right. It's okay. But then when we're losing, he sat there, arms crossed, doing fuck all, talking to his assistant Paris. I'm like, why? Lampard did the same. Why did you not do this? I just can't understand. And I know that the players often can't hear them anyway. It's more about psychologically. You see the body language of your manager, and it's going to somewhat transfer over to the team. Like, if the manager is right on it, like right into it, you're more likely to, like, say, fight back from a losing position than if the manager is sat there on the bench, arms crossed. If the players look over, how are they going to, like, get up and try to fight their way back into a team when they see the manager, like, basically giving up on the bench? I never understand why they do this. But
just to add on that, Laurenz, if you notice, Pep, he actually does the opposite. When he's winning, that's when he's sitting down. When he's losing, that's when he's up and about, and that's,
which is how it should be.
Exactly
that. And it even annoys me, like I said, because there's some people on my Twitter anyway that constantly defend Poch when I say something against him, and and I'm like, think of all the great managers: Pep, Klopp, Jose, Ancelotti. Watch their games and watch how often they sit down with their arms crossed while their team is losing. That's not a thing that they do. Why do you think they are the best managers in the world? Like, fucking use your brains. That's all you have to do. Anyway, Dimitar, an 8 and a 9 so far for Poch. What would you give him today?
I think 8.5, so I can be right in the middle, and we don't have to do a poll in the chat. But yeah, I kind of agree on that. But at the end of the day, I would much rather that the coach is really seeing what's going on on the pitch. Because sometimes, with us fans, when you talk to a fellow fan, and sometimes you feel that they saw a completely different game. And I'm pretty sure that if we could talk to Poch right now, maybe he saw some things more different than we did. And I would like for him to concentrate on the game because we're still a club in progress. So I don't know if for me it's that.
Even for that, I would argue it's better to be stood up, because when you sat down on the sidelines, you're so low down.
Well, they are technically looking at tablets. They always have a tablet in front of them, which I would assume is the broadcast of the game. So it's not like they're not looking at the game. But yeah, I don't know.
Live broadcast on there. I've never thought of that. I thought they get replays, but I didn't really consider that they might have live broadcasts. It's a good point. It's a good point, yeah. But then you have your assistant for that. Stand up. I still think it's important.
I agree on that part. The thing is, he should be a little bit more involved, but I also think if he's focusing on game and tactics, it's not that bad, because we need him to focus on that part exactly, and we need him to figure out how to play better. So if he figures out how to set up the team better, I don't mind. So I would say
But then when he sat there and then doesn't make any tactical changes anyway, then what's the benefit?
Well, yeah.
But you make a good point.
I mean, but he did what he had today. Yeah. He did what he had to today, and we won. So I don't think we can criticize him a whole lot.
No, we can't. Hence why he got an 8.5, which is well done to him. Well done to the team today. In the grand scheme of things, extended his life here. Also, another thing to mention, because we now qualify for the 5th round of the FA Cup, the 5th round of the FA Cup has its own weekend. But because it's now less teams involved, this now actually postpones our league game against Arsenal. So, arguably, it extends Poch's life at the club even longer, because he won't get battered by Arsenal as soon. So, that is something. But yeah, we got another championship team in the next round, so should be winning that. And how many? So, 5th round is now coming up. Well, what's like obviously 6th round? I can count, but what is it, like quarterfinal or what? Where are we?
5th round should be quarterfinal, because there are 8 games, I believe.
Yes, quarterfinal next, I believe. I think
that's crazy.
Yeah.
Now, if it's 8 rounds, then the 5th round.
No,
would have to
wait a second. I got the table in front of me. Oh yeah, so this is last 16. Yeah, there are 8 games. This is last 16.
Okay, there you go. See, so if we beat Leeds, quarterfinals. So, and just now, this season or last season for the first time, it was different for the first time, because it's always been the winner of the Carabao Cup and the winner of the FA Cup get a spot in the Europa League. But obviously, since they now introduced the Conference League, the winner of the League Cup gets a Conference League spot, but the winner of the FA Cup gets, as far as I'm aware, a Europa League spot.
Is it like that? Are you sure?
As far as I read that on Twitter somewhere by someone that I think has, and it makes sense because the FA Cup is a bigger cup. So in my opinion, this is logical. But so there is also an extra incentive to not only do well in the League Cup, but also in the FA Cup, because we won't qualify for the Europa League through the league, realistically. I mean, we could, but with how inconsistent we are, I doubt it. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, who thought we'd win 3-1 today? Still a bit annoyed that we conceded that goal late on. Why not 3-0? It's like that Middlesbrough game. Why couldn't we just win 6-0? Why not have to be 6-1? But hey, it is what it is. It's part of where we are right now. 11th in the league. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, please subscribe if you haven't already. Hit that like button on the way out. That would be massively appreciated. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Up the Chelsea. Upwards and onwards. We go again on Monday against Crystal Palace. And we will see you next time.